welcome everyone. Yes, another episode of Disruption Talks. Take a break from all the news and come here to learn something really cool from the smartest minds in tech, from the biggest brands and the coolest brands in tech. So I'm gonna go out on a limb here and assume that everybody in the audience knows what a car is, the car industry, but I'm pretty sure that you also know that the access to cars, it's what differentiates the market because manufacturing is one thing, but the way that you get to access the car, buy the car, lease the car, rent a car, whatever the car, is a whole new world. And joining us today is Andrea Perizzato. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Andrea, please tell me, am I
It
saying it
was
right?
very good, thanks. Yes.
So you are the technical lead of operations development at Finn. Uh, I usually start with an introduction. Of course, I've checked your LinkedIn, I've checked out Finn, but let's not assume that our audience has done the exact same thing. So, if you could.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. So my name is Andrea, and I come from a little town about an hour north of Venice in Italy. I'm currently a tech lead, as you mentioned, in a team called Operations Development, and this is a team that looks after the life cycle of a car. So we have loads of backend processes and integrations to develop, and I'm based here in Munich. I'd say I started writing code many years ago now, from microcontrollers. And then when the iPhone came out, I was very excited, and I got into the mobile space. And after that, I kind of moved around more into Android, and then some front end, and finally kind of settled a little bit more on back end and AWS services. Um, in my career, I worked most of my time in the UK. So I'm a newbie here in Germany, actually. I've been here for 6, 7 months now. Um, and in the UK, I've worked in the healthcare industry, and we had a goal of bringing pharmacy in the digital age. So kind of fill the gap between the experience the pharmacy provided and what customers were expecting. And then I worked in fintech, and we were tackling the short-term loan space, which is a very delicate space in that industry. And we were trying to do it in a more ethical way, which is very interesting to be part of that as well. And then I moved to Munich, and here I am.
Yeah, I've seen the Well Pharmacy, I've seen Auden or Auden, I'm not sure how to
Yeah,
pronounce it once again, but
yeah, it's Odin. Yeah.
I've checked it out. Speaking of cars and Android, just today I've seen the news that some Polish developer has managed to crack all the Teslas and enable CarPlay. A really cool information. I'll send you the link later. But back to the episode. Okay, so we know who Andrea is. One thing I'm missing is what is Finn? How does it differentiate? Speak to me
Yes.
if I was a first time car buyer and you're trying to tell me, no, no, don't buy, use Finn.
I'd say kind of with the ownership of a car, there are loads of things that come with it. And like, for instance, buying an insurance, looking after the car. And but loads of people are just interested in driving a car and having quick access to a car. And that's what we want to provide them. So a very kind of hassle-free, all-inclusive experience for a car, or you just pay a monthly fee and everything else is taken care of. So you don't have to worry about signing up for an insurance and selling the car at the end, or even buying the car and so on. And the whole process is very smooth. So you can go on our website and get and sign up for a car in minutes, and the car will be delivered to you on the day that you booked, and then you can just drive off and enjoy your car.
Okay, and the markets that you operate in, because I've seen news back from December 2021 about US expansion, but when I went on the website, it was in German. So I'm curious.
Yes. Yes, we are live in the US. We went live in the US at the beginning of this year. So it depends where you are with your laptop. You might see a different website or the language that your laptop is set on. But there's a word on the top right, like a word icon, and you can switch the
Yeah.
kind of the country. And yeah, so we are live indeed, and we are live currently in 4 states in the US, and And now the goal there is the initial goal was to validate, and we've definitely done that and seen huge potential. And the next phase there is to grow.
Okay, but just before we dive head first into Fin, uh, pharmacy, ethical, short-term loans, mobility. Please explain
Yeah.
the logical progression.
There is no logical progression, literally. But probably one thing behind the scene is that I mostly in all of them work in the operational side, which is the part that I enjoy the most. And I'd say the industry itself is always interesting to move between one and the other. But at the end, I always find myself implementing business processes and this kind of thing. So as long as you allow for a few months to understand what these processes are, then the work is somewhat related on the operational side at least.
And when you
Just
mention
integrations.
when you mention working on site, you refer to every company or just to Fin?
No, the operational side. I mean, of like in the pharmacy, we had to send orders out of the door. So the problem was how do we get medicines in boxes quickly enough with the right tech and stuff. And similarly goes here. Like how do we get cars delivered with the least effort? So there are kind of analogies in how you implement those things and the problems that people face, like reliability and making processes observable and make sure you know what is happening, who did what and when, and all these kind of problems are quite common in operations.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So, is there anything that drives you nuts in the domain of mobility, at the crossroads of mobility and tech lead? Like, I can't give you any other example from any other domain, but well, you tell me. Is there something that you'd like to see changed, fixed, removed, or
Yeah. Oh,
start?
yeah. Plenty. I'd say the most interesting one for me as a kind of somewhat a random bloke showing up in the car industry a few months ago was that my expectation was of a very high tech world, where modern days we talk about API first or this kind of event first, and I would say based on what I've seen so far, mostly spreadsheet first. So we have loads of updates being sent with spreadsheets between different suppliers or kind of people we work with. So, parsing spreadsheets, finding diffs between the old version and the new ones. And this is kind of day to day that we have to do really. And it's kind of double interesting, I'd say. One is, it is like, I would love to have an event-based system that tells me what happened rather than me passing spreadsheet to find out. Sure, but at the same time, everyone was working with this. It's not just us, and we have an opportunity to kind of internalize this complexity and make it look really slick on the other side, right? So that customers just things magically happen on their side, but they're not as magical on the our side. But we make them as magical as we can, and I think that's kind of our job to do that, to make sure that things work, even if the input is not as modern as we'd like.
I mean, of course, I asked the question with emotion, the loaded question with emotion, saying what drives you nuts. But I get your answer that when we remove the emotion part, this is just the way that they have been doing it. There is no wrong intention. There is no, I would say, resistance to progress and innovation, but much rather, we've been doing this. This has worked for us. Unless somebody comes in with a better solution that somehow and is also plug and play, so I don't have to learn more stuff, then this is what I'm going
Yeah.
to stick to. So other than parsing spreadsheets on the daily, what's your day like? I know that every day is different, but give me an
Yeah.
idea.
I would say I have to focus on a few things. So one is coming up with a solution design usually. And so like we've got this problem, what we're going to do, we heavily use serverless and AWS services. So which one? So what was the easiest way to get this live? guaranteeing some level of quality, obviously. And then when I get lucky, I also get to write code, which is really cool. I always love to do that, and I always take some time to do it because I don't want to be fully detached. It's important to me. Also, I really like. Then people and processes. I'm sure, as everyone knows, nothing gets done without people. And then when people are too many, then you need processes as well. Otherwise, it's not really clear who does what and in kind of which order we do things and how we do things. So we have to design. I'm not really kind of a heavy process kind of guy. I will try to be the least amount of process, but we need some sort of process to ensure quality at the very least. And then hiring. Fin is growing, has grown, and has to grow. And growth comes with more people, which we need to hire. And hiring is very time consuming, but is very rewarding as well. So, and something that I have to do. I love to do as well.
Yeah, that sounds good. So now jumping into Finn, but let's first paint the picture for our audience. And dear audience, I'm not the only one who asks questions. Please ask questions in the comments. We will be putting them on the screen and addressing them together with Andrea. So let's say car industry, and I'm saying customer facing. So move aside all the manufacturing. If you want to have access to four wheels, you're either going to buy one or you're not going to buy one, but gain access on a timely basis. And that spreads out to long-term rentals, short-term rentals, leases. Does Finn fall into the short-term rentals with a possibility to extend to long-term rentals? Is this covering an existing space or creating something completely new?
So I'd say we're flexible in that. So depending on which car you get, and you can check this out on our website, you can go from a flexible kind of plan. So you would basically decide every month what you want to do next month. But you can also decide to lock yourself in for a much longer period, and the period could be just a few months or even a year or sometimes even more. So this is up to the customer actually to decide what they want to do. So it could be seen as both a short term because it's just a month and then you decide, or it could be a much longer term, like a year or so. So I have a Finn car and mine is signed up for a year, so I can enjoy it for a whole year before I return it back.
Okay. So I'm curious, what differentiates Finn per se? I've seen many companies do that from several avenues. I mean, I don't want to say I've seen many companies. Why tell me what differentiates you? Because I've seen many companies even enter into this space from another companies like Zipcar, for example, starting FlexCar. So also a similar product to banking institutions, opening up to more flexible approaches. Car rental companies themselves, just not aggregators, but much rather the car rental companies themselves, also need for flexibility. I've seen a strong focus on sustainability on the website. That's sort of what pops up into my feed. So I'd love to learn more. What makes Finn Finn?
Yes. So well, very good question. So I say so sustainability is definitely one, and the other one is making it as easy as possible for you to have a car. So you go on the website, you choose a delivery date, and then that's the day you're gonna get the car, and then you just nothing to worry about. We also have a very wide and a very wide choices of cars, both electrics, both non-electric or plug-in hybrids, and so you can choose between loads of brands and loads of models, and so we're very and also we're flexible in terms, as I mentioned before, of what you get when it comes to the length of the contract that you want to sign up for. So this is kind of what I think has been flexible, been very easy to use, and being like completely hassle-free for you. Nothing you have to worry about. Everything is included in there, and you just enjoy what you got a car for, which is to go around.
All right. I wanted to find out this, and hope it's not. This is the elephant in the room that we might just have to address. Uh, Many companies are slowing down their growth. Many companies are freezing
Hmm.
hiring, rescinding offers, receiving down rounds in terms of valuation. But here is Finn. Just last month, $110 million, dollars, not euros. Like, this, at least to me, suggests that either Finn had a great contract from before and the investor couldn't back out, 1% chance, or 99% chance that actually there is a very strong business model that holds up against any economic downturn, because the people still need to get places, right? Cars
Hmm.
don't become less necessary just because prices go higher, much rather even more. Can you share what are the plans for further development on the platform in the nearest future? Because I imagine such an investment is not just here's the money, but here's the money to achieve specific goals. So, as much as you can say without breaking any NDAs.
Obviously, yes. Well, first of all, as you mentioned, we're in the kind of we have a solid base, and this is how we got our funding, as you might expect, especially in this kind of economic environment. And what this money allows us to do is to kind of um, materialize our plans, so make them real. And so the next steps for us is to kind of keep growing, really. So as you mentioned, we're live in the US and we're live in Germany. So step for us is us to mainly, I'd say, do two things: improve our fleet, so even more choice to our customers, more models, more brands, both from existing partners that we have, but also from new partners that we would like to work with. And when it comes to the US, the US is a very large market, and as I mentioned, we're live in 4 states, and what we need to do there is to expand into more states, and same as in Germany, expand our fleet. So our plans now can be actually made into reality thanks to the investment that we just received.
Okay. Any plans for me to be able to use Finn in Poland anytime soon? Do you know anything about that?
Uh, at some point.
Okay, I'll set up a reminder.
Yes.
You're the technical lead, so I get to ask, what are the top engineering challenges ahead of Finn, if there
Um,
are any? As in, I can imagine that this could be either scenario A, smooth sailing, we have the money, the product is, uh, I should use that word in the sense that, it's not making sure that people can efficiently get out. It's just fuel that will burn extremely clean, or am I missing challenges ahead of us?
so the main, yeah, we do have engineering challenges, as everyone does. So I would say the the top one for me is hiring, which is, I'm not sure it classifies as an engineering challenge, but it very much is for me. And the reason why I put this at the top is because it's the most kind of time intensive process where you can compromise the least. Because making mistakes is definitely not what you want to do, and hiring the wrong person is bad on both sides, actually. So we need to be very transparent on our what people would find, and also make sure that we find the people that we're looking for. And this is time consuming. Um, so hiring definitely number one, and then as part of being, as being part of a company that is experiencing a very strong growth, um, processes are breaking usually, right? So you you set things up to work with 5 people, and then you're 20 and things that just don't work anymore, and then you are 100, and then you're 200, and then nothing starts working, and because processes weren't designed to work with this many people. So we have to adapt as we grow, and sometimes, as referred to as growth pain, we might grow faster than we can adapt the processes. So we're experiencing some of that pain, which is kind of normal and exciting, I would say, in an environment like this. But also from a more tech point of view, also tech processes break. For instance, how do we talk between each other? Because multiple teams are created and exist now, and then how do we communicate with each other? For instance, how do we define an API? What does an API looks like internally? How do we authenticate with each other, and so on? So not just people processes, but also tech processes and are kind of challenges for us. And tech in general, I wouldn't say this is a huge problem. It is a problem, obviously, but these days things are much easier because we have access to, you pick most AWS services that you can almost indefinitely scale, and they're very cheap. So as long as we know which one to use, scaling at large volumes is not really. I don't expect this to be a huge problem technically. More, I would expect people processes or like operations to break before tax breaks usually, because if you think about what I realized in my time here is that we're not in a really real-time space, right? So our industry is not real-time, so we don't have millions of requests per second that we need to serve within 10 milliseconds, for instance. We're not in that space. We're more in the space where things can be delayed up to a reasonable amount, obviously, but loads of things require shipping things around. Like registering a car requires someone to ship the license plate somewhere and also print the license plate. So it's not something that we get a license plate in 20 milliseconds, right? It's going to take a little bit of time. But what we need to ensure is that we're very reliable in what we implement. So we cannot afford to not know where a car is, because a car is quite an expensive asset, and so we might delay the registration of a car by an hour because there's an issue, and that's fine, but we cannot lose the car. So reliability is more important than responsiveness, at least on the operational side. Then when it comes to the front end, obviously, we need to provide a sleek and fast experience there. So yeah, this would say are the main challenges for us.
Okay. So I want to frame your response here with the engineering challenges and use that to lead to my next question. Coming back to this US expansion topic, on the engineering side, I imagine that the stakeholders that you have is user, Fin, and sort of an immaterial stakeholder in the form of local regulations or anything that specific to this geography. So between the US and Germany, because Finn's primary market, have there been any differences on the engineering side? Out of curiosity, is it a different Finn in the US and a different Finn in Germany just because of the landscape in which you all have to operate?
Currently, it's a blend. So for instance, from a front-end point of view, or the website is not a different Fin. From an operational point of view, currently we're more detached between the two different countries. This is mainly because the top priority in the US was for us to validate and expand really quickly, and we didn't want to held back by the German setup, basically. And so this is why, but we are obviously looking at integrating processes that make sense in a single place. And let me give you an example. A car goes through its life with us, from being ordered to being delivered to the customer and coming back from the customer and so on. The life that a car goes through is the same regardless of where the car is physically located. But the processes that determine these changes of the car statuses are different. So registering a car in Germany is very different than registering a car in the US. But the outcome of that is that a car is registered. So we could definitely centralize the life of a car and some of the processes, but some other processes have to be decoupled from the car itself. And so this gives us an opportunity to be somewhat centralized, but also somewhat not, depending on what the actual problem is.
Okay. And I just wanted to go back. You mentioned when I asked you about those challenges. Uh, you mentioned reliability over responsiveness, but the first thing that you mentioned was hiring. Would you say that this is the biggest bottleneck?
It hiring is complex, yes. It always is, especially in the software engineering space. So it is kind of a bottleneck, I would say. It depends. Uh, Sometimes it is, and then you manage to hire a few people, and then things settle a little bit, but then you have to keep growing, and then becomes a problem again. So it's a bit of a across the board is constant, and for different teams it could be some sort of like wavy. But the main reason why it can be a bottleneck is because it's very time consuming. Um, so this is the main, coming up with a solution or building something is we know this is what we're going to build, this is how you're going to do. But hiring is always an open-ended process that takes a lot of time and involves loads of people, because we cannot hire someone based on a half an hour quick chat to see how they hire. This will be quite risky, and so we have to balance the time that we spend, what we ask people, but also and the risk of hiring the wrong person, basically.
Okay. So I've got a question more to Andrea than Andrea technically at Finn. Uh,
Yeah.
what we see right now on the market, I mean, there are websites, there are LinkedIn posts almost every day with people saying, hey, here's my Google Sheets file. You can see all the people from my company available. It would seem that with those layoffs, there would be talent left, right, and center because not only are the people laid off, which means that they're up in the market, there is less suction from is trying to employ because all of a sudden they don't try to grow like crazy for the purpose of growth, but they say, okay, we're stopping hiring. So I would imagine that when you have all of these developers from companies like PayPal, Netflix, Klarna, Gorillas, the top ones, hiring shouldn't be a problem when the menu basically says, oh, you are here from the multi-corn, not even a unicorn or a decacorn. Why? What is missing to bridge that gap? Because let's say a year ago, usually recruiters and founders would tell you it's tough to hire. Everybody has money, everybody wants to grow, everybody can fight for talent. Right now, I would say that this is a situation in which the people who still have cash flow, just like the well-funded Finn, should be in an extremely winning position because you have access to the top people, you have the way to hire them. Uh, Shed some light on what is it that I'm missing other than this sort of recruitment time, because no matter you don't have the best people, but you still have to interview. But outside of that, do you think that this is changing? This is going to change? What's your take on this? Because you've been in software development since June 2013, from a founder to all of the other companies that we mentioned. So you must have your own opinion and must hear a lot of opinions in the industry from your friends.
Yeah. Well, I would say things were, as you mentioned, brutal a few months ago. Like in terms of ability to hire was very, very hard. People would just hire you on the spot. And when I was in the UK, things are even more extreme than here in Germany, where you can get a, a way like salary way beyond the average based on an hour interview quite easily. Well, not easily, but like this was the reality, because companies started to compete between each other on the quickest and slickest in like hiring process. That was like very, very fast. Like when I was working at Odin, for instance, we would usually have an hour and a half interview, and that was it. And then we had to make a decision and send the response usually on the same day.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you very likely lose the candidate. Um, and Personally, but this is my personal view, I thought that was too much, because then people take advantage of the situation. Um, and So I don't know. I had many experiences of interviewing people apply for very kind of senior roles, but that wasn't there. But the skill set, I mean, but the and this creates a kind of you hire, no, you're forced to hire basically, because this is
Yeah.
the one you either go who knows what, right? hope maybe the positive side of all of this, of what is happening now, is that there's probably less demand at the moment, and so you can it's more of a kind of a normal environment, probably. So this would be the positive side that I can see out of all of this, and obviously we're in a happy place because we are one of those hirings, and so as you mentioned, unfortunately there have been quite a few layoffs that we can kind of take advantage of and help these people get another job quicker. So we're actually in a good position at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think just like you mentioned, this is coming back to normal. This is a market correction because when the stakeholders, being the company and the engineer and the other competing company for that engineer, and when you have to hire on the spot because it's a game theory between
Yeah.
if I hire, it's either a good hire or a bad hire. If I don't hire,
Yeah.
I don't have anybody, and they're just going to take the potentially great candidate away from me. And I've even seen threads on Y Combinator's forum Hacker News of some developers just showing off that they have multiple jobs at the same time, that they just go for the 6 month probationary period on remote. It doesn't matter. Companies are
Yeah.
taking me on anyway. So,
Yes.
yeah, I think this is, we are in the fixing stage. It was slightly overexcited, so to say.
Yeah. But we also have to see that this has created, in my view, this has created pressure on employers to create better working environments with the main goal of retaining people and providing a better overall work experience, which I think we've all benefit from. For instance, we can in our industry, most of us can have a flexible remote working policy, or you have quite a nice equipment usually, and there are loads of team events and this kind of things that we're all benefit from and really enjoy. But it wasn't probably the case before because there wasn't such a high pressure on retaining people and on the hiring processes. And so I think we also have to acknowledge some positive sides that pressure has created towards a better work-life balance and everyone being aware of a good work-life balance. And that is a top priority for employers to kind of ensure for their employees. So I think as everything, there's a good and bad.
Yeah, I mean, good and bad. We can't change the bad because we are approaching a recession. So we just have to look and focus and sort of. I can imagine that from a company standpoint, what is happening right now is I don't want to. You mentioned taking an advantage. I wouldn't say taking an advantage. I would say just making the best out of the situation for everybody
Yes.
involved.
Yes.
It's a win-win situation. Nobody loses. The employer,
Absolutely.
still with a job, with a work, uh, healthier, more sane, less hype here there market. You probably can also expect your employees to do less job hopping as it was, let's say, a year ago or
Yeah.
2 years ago, where hey, better offer here, but offer is
Yes.
there, and I don't worry about my employment.
Yeah, I agree. Yes. Which doesn't take our responsibility to provide a good working experience, though. So we still have to do
Yeah,
that.
no, no, absolutely. I would say that that's the thing, that whilst the focus previously was how can we acquire and just acquire, how can we get them through the door, right now it's how can we retain them, build loyalty, make sure that
Yeah.
this is the of another offer, right?
Yeah.
So still on this, what makes I mean, wait. You said you had to do 1.5 hour interviews at Auden right? At Auden, yeah.
Yeah,
To
that's what we used to do. Yes.
from the first meeting to the door.
Yes.
What were you looking for? What are the traits, skills? Like I can imagine that in a normal so I see how they do this, and that. But I want to pose this in this 1.5 hour because you have to be like really turned on and look for green flags, red flags. Okay, more
Yeah.
green, you're hired, right?
Yes.
So
Exactly. So this is my personal view of this. So I would
yeah,
say I like to see. So first of all, most of the places I work with were like in a startup or Well Pharmacy it was kind of a startup within a bigger company, so there was always this kind of a growth environment. So I want people. I always look for people that are kind of driven, that wants to be challenged, but also that are kind of honest and transparent in what they know and what they don't and what they want. For instance, joining a startup is not always the best choice. Depends on what you're actually looking for. It's usually a space that comes with slightly more pressure, but also more excitement, and is much more dynamic. There, for instance, a more established company, but it's not that one is good and one is bad. They're two different things, and you have to find what is good, and people have to be transparent on that. Because if it's not the right job for them, it's not the right job. That's the one. So these kind of the basic traits. So transparency, being driven, and kind of wanting to do things like excitement over building stuff. And then from a kind of engineering, my preference is for people that have a kind of a broad experience in terms of different things. For instance, usually I found people tend to be much stronger in one discipline. For instance, let's take back-end development, but they touched front-end, or they have a little bit of experience with mobile development, or pick another one, right? And this, with the kind of the 80-20 rule, if you know kind of a little bit, you can get quite a lot done. And that's the things that I kind of look for. So some people call this like T-shaped skill set. So kind of you have big shoulders, whether loads of things, and that's kind of what I would love to find. And the reason for this is because sometimes in startups you have to move around because priorities shift, and today we do this, but tomorrow we do something else, and so, if today we needed backend skills, maybe tomorrow we still need those, but we also have to fix a couple of things on the website, and no one else is free to do it. So we've got to jump and do it. And people that are willing to do this and take the hit, which is painful at times, is kind of the skill set that I look for.
Okay. I mean, I can also see it from like a non-engineering, but much rather a human perspective. If you see someone who just said backend, it means that they haven't looked around, right? Whilst if you see a candidate who has said, okay, I touched this here, I made a conscious decision to be a backend engineer based on those things, and I also come with the not knowledge but familiarity of the other places where I probably will interact in a startup environment as an engineer, right?
Yeah, and this could change as we move forward and we scale, because as we manage to hire more people and grow and establish our kind of tech stack and processes, then having very specialized skill sets could be of extreme value. So these can change as we move forward and as we grow. But if I have to pick at any point in time, I would always go for a person that has seen different things. Whether they're languages and whether they're different, kind of parts of the stack. That's what I kind of tend to prefer, but it's very personal view.
Sure, it makes sense because at the beginning in any startup, from the situation where we have a non-technical co-founder, everybody has to be a generalist. But with the maturation of the company, you eventually have to say, okay, specialist.
Yes.
So I'm not going to ask you about the why behind the idea of women in tech, because that would be like super ignorant, but much rather what is of that program, what is the outcome, what have you seen, like what's the state of women in tech at Finn, both the program and in general?
Yeah, so first of all, what you mentioned kind of didn't touch on the why, but I would say that the why is also kind of one thing that is important is the diversity of teams, right? And having different backgrounds and different perspectives is the real goal here.
Of course, I just assumed that goes without saying.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. And so the goal, the kind of what we do there is that we want to attract more women to enter the tech industry. and is there to encourage women to apply and progress and have a career in this industry, which we all know has been is heavily dominated by men at the moment. And so what we do is we give opportunity to talk to other women that are already at Finn or outside of Finn, and this gives people confidence about their skills and what this industry looks like, and lowers the barrier to apply. But also when people apply and they get a job, we don't want to be the odd one out kind of a situation, or feeling that you're left out or you're the only one in a team. And so we're trying our best to avoid this situation from happening. And it's been successful so far. We have hired people, and I'm honestly really excited that we are doing this kind of stuff, and that we managed to kind of lower the barrier for entry, and help people be confident to apply and be part of our teams.
Yeah. I mean, diversity. This is basically a competitive advantage at this point. If you don't work on that, you're creating an echo chamber of opinions.
Yes.
It just makes sense on the business front to have different opinions, because if you have to continually challenge your own brain to, okay, why is that opinion different? What is the difference? Maybe the difference is actually better than what I thought. That's
Yes, absolutely.
it's just like a huge bonus that comes with hiring anybody outside of the dominant spectrum that we have.
And as an example, the women are very they affect loads of car decisions, or in terms of which cars people buy or families buy. They're very and so how can we deliver an inclusive and good product for everyone if we don't have this perspective inside our company? So these are it's not just about going to 50-50 for the sake of it. It's because these are also kind of having this different perspective help us deliver a much better product and a much more inclusive product at the end of the day.
I don't want to say yes or no, because I've heard this, but I've never actually checked the data on the decision makers in households. But I can imagine your argument potentially being true. So yeah, definitely that makes sense.
Yes, I had a percentage around, but not with me here. I read the percentage recently.
Okay. So you have the data. Okay, so you have the data.
Yeah.
So let's talk sustainability, and it's not going to be just me asking the questions. I have a couple questions from the audience. One thing, simple question, simple answer to satisfy the curiosity. Tesla is a great brand, so people want to hear. Finn works with many partners, Tesla one of them. Could you tell us more about this partnership and Tesla's grand opening of the Gigafactory in Germany?
Yeah, we're good friends, as you've seen from us being there. I mean, we have a strong partnership with Tesla. You can see it from our website in the US as well, where we offer many Teslas to all of our customers, and our partnership is good, as you've seen, as we've been invited to the grand opening, which was an amazing achievement for us to be there. If you think we're not a very old company, we're quite young overall, and being there is huge for us, right? And it was amazing. Some people allegedly shook Elon's hand, and so they even got the extra mile out of that trip. But not all of us, unfortunately. But some of the few lucky ones got this treat as well.
You can just shake their hand, and
Yes, obviously, yes, which hasn't been washed on the trip back.
I would imagine so, gloves and everything. So further on sustainability, Krzysztof this time asks, 1/3 of your fleet is already fully electric. This is a very good result. What are the main reasons your customers are selecting electric vehicles, and what is Finn doing to make a transition from regular engines, known as internal combustion engines, to EVs?
So this is I think so. This is my view. I don't know the details, I have to be honest, but I would say selecting EVs these days is becoming more viable because of very high petrol costs. At least in Germany, we've crossed the €2 per liter, so it's quite expensive now to drive an internal combustion engine. Also, since we provide such a flexible service, is actually a very good way for people to experience an electric vehicle, which is different from a petrol vehicle, both from a kind of lifestyle because of range, even if they're quite good now, but you need to, go and charge your car, or you need to charge your car at home. It's kind of a different lifestyle a little bit. So we give a very good way for people to experience what an electric car is, which I think is very appealing. And also what we're doing to make a transition. So we are increasing the fleet, our electric fleet. So a third, as you mentioned, is electric, and what we want to do in the next months and years is to constantly grow that. But touching on sustainability, we also have to acknowledge that not everyone today can switch. The charging infrastructure is not where it should be, and also for some people, the lifestyle that comes with an electric car just doesn't suit them. And so we have to acknowledge that, and so we cannot pretend that tomorrow we can have an 100% electric fleet and let's go. Right? It's not going to happen. So what we're doing is that we're trying to make. And we are making, actually, we're not trying to, we are making internal combustion engine cars more sustainable. And so what we do is we basically provide a carbon neutral driving for all our petrol cars, which I think is really good. And so the way we do this is through a partner called Climate Partner, and you can read about this on our website. And so for every kilogram of CO2 that is kind of emitted by your car, and this is based on average consumption of your car, we then pay Climate Partner, which they do kind of climate, what they call climate protection projects. And so they go and compensate the emission that you had with your car. And I think the best of all for this is that this is part of your subscription. So maybe some people don't even realize this is the case. There's no opt-out feature. This is it, right? So this is it's there. It's part of the hassle-free plus carbon neutral, and it's all bundled in, which I think is amazing, because maybe some people don't realize that this is actually happening behind the scenes, but it is happening, and all of a sudden they're carbon neutral driving, even with a petrol car.
It's an interesting thing with this no opt out, because usually, for example, you're buying an airline ticket, right? You would get the option at the end, hey, do you want to offset the carbon footprint?
Yes.
Listen, most people will say no thanks. Whilst here, I like the fact that this is not being left as a decision to the customer, because with the projections and the forecasts on the temperature increases, what we're seeing even just right now outside of our own windows in Europe with the extremely high temperatures, I think it's good to be a steward of systemic change, if I might call it that, because if you ask everyone and everybody gets to think about it, no point. But if you just say this is included as the package deal because this is the standard that we want to set, just like you mentioned, it's not because you need the infrastructure, need the subsidies. Even if you have the infrastructure, even if you would have full saturations on the map, some people have to go, so let's say, from Warsaw to Switzerland. And on a car, it's 16 hours. On a petrol car, it's 16 hours. On an electric car, it would be, you arrive, your range is out, you have to charge. It's a supercharger. You're lucky, you're charged fast. And you're in a village, no supercharger, just regular charger, extra 3 hours of you just waiting. So I think
exactly, yes,
the patience that you're describing here, and the fact that you just want to be the leader of this journey, and understanding that this will take time, I'm pretty sure that's the way. We also had another question about how does the program work, but I'm pretty sure that you just explained it. So you answered the question before I even got to ask it. But Edita also asks if there are any other green initiatives run by your company, or if you could tell us a little bit more about the climate protection project.
Yeah, no. So we have a partner with this company called Climate Partner, and then they take all the proceedings and that we give them to implement projects and kind of do CO2 negative activities that would result in a kind of carbon offset from your emissions.
Okay. Okay. I mean, that makes absolute sense because at the end of the day, you are a mobility company, not a sustainability
Yeah.
company. So it's best to leave what is done by the professionals instead of trying to develop that in house.
Yeah.
So I've got a business question. You tell me if you feel comfortable answering this.
Let's
Uh,
go.
a lot of people would have looked at this industry with large players, various business models and providers, and thought of it as a red ocean, as in if I go in as a shark, I'm going to be biting and I'm going to be bitten and there's going to be blood. What is the gap in the market that Finn identified that allowed it to exist, grow, and now thrive in the $110 million funding from a month ago situation?
Wow, that's a very good question. I don't really know how to answer. I wasn't there at the time, admittedly. I can only guess from again, very much my personal view here. I would say loads of industries have moved towards a more kind of a subscription model.
Yeah.
And cars seems to be a very good use case for this model. And in my view, it does make sense that we have, we had leasings, we still have them, they're still really good. That were kind of a somewhat, you pay like much less and you can enjoy the car, but it's never been hassle-free, right? Fully hassle-free. So leasing takes some of the pain out of you, but it's never been fully hassle-free. And as many other industries have transitions into this model, it kind of makes sense for the cars to transition into this model too, or at least not for the full market, because the market of cars is very, very big. But there's definitely a chunk of users that are interested in kind of not worrying about cars, or the not really worrying about the car, worrying about what's on top of having a car, right? So getting financing, insurance, and the tires and services and all this kind of stuff. So kind of ease that, customer expectations aligned towards kind of not be bothered with things, just enjoying things. Take Spotify for example, or Netflix as a probably a good example in a very, very different industry, where we had to go and get a DVD to rent and drive back and forth and stuff. And now we just don't own anything, but we focus on enjoying a film. That was the whole purpose of all of this. And so I think, yes, so I think that kind of feels somewhat natural, that this industry could benefit from this kind of ownership models as well.
I mean, if I were also to guess, I would say good product, good advertising, good positioning, good time, and the flexibility plus subscription factor that you mentioned, right? Uh, Many companies would say that short-term rental, 6 months minimum. I mean, that doesn't really work for many people, especially people who don't even live in a place for that long as 6 months. So definitely, it was an answer to that. And even when you buy a car, you still are subject to subscriptions. I know that, for example, BMW or Tesla allows you to you buy the car, but in order to unlock some features, you have to like the features that are in your car already. You have to pay a subscription
Yes, true.
to have that switched on. So subscriptions are inevitable.
But to give you an example, as I mentioned before, I have a car from Finn, and it was a no-brainer to me really, because I'm so putting yourself in my shoes. So I moved here. I don't speak any German. I don't know anything about the German system. Getting access to credit for me would be very difficult because I've been here for just a few months. So not many banks are willing to trust me at the moment. And so and also dealing with all the bureaucracy, getting an insurance, and even if some English service are available, is kind of a hassle that I have to. I would spend so much time with Google Translate, and then maybe signing the wrong deal and getting the wrong car delivery at the end. It just wasn't worth it for me. I just went on the website, placed the order, and then one day, well, not one day, the day I wanted, a person showed up with my car and handed over the keys, and that's it. And that's it. Nothing else for me to do. So it was very easy, also from a, in a kind of difficult environment for me, because it's all different than what I was used to, being able to get access to a car with incredible ease and just peace of mind.
Okay. So we are nearing the end of the episode. I'm gonna have last two questions, but we have another question, the last question from the audience, from Sebastian. Given the great opportunity that software engineer career represents for everyone, like people from developing countries that have easier access to boot camps, online courses, and certificates than to university, what type of qualifications do you actually look for when hiring people? What tells you that a candidate has the skills? And unless you know Sebastian, I should tell you his headline on LinkedIn is intern at Fin. So
Yes, I do know him. Yeah, so I, I, so when it comes to certification, I don't know if this is controversial or not, but I have mixed opinions. So sometimes they're good, and sometimes they don't prove anything. So they prove that you've passed the exam. That's what they prove. 100% they prove that. But whether you can actually do what the subscription, the certification was meant to tell you is a whole different story. So you could get a certification on AWS solution architect, but if you've never built something, then the certification kind of says, yeah, you have a general knowledge over this, but it doesn't give any guarantee over your ability to come up with a with a fleet of AWS services to solve a specific problem. It helps you get in there, but it doesn't get you there. There's nothing that beats hands-on experience. So I would, and every time get someone that's got the experience with no certification over the other way around, for sure. And what I would look for is I kind of, for me, kind of hands-on, or being able to talk when during interviews, being able to ask why you've made decisions, or why this, why that. Loads of people use like mean stack to build some MVPs themselves because it's quite a low barrier of entry. Like, why did you use it? What did you find interesting? Or like challenge every decision that you made across the line, across the process when to build something. Is always like look back and think. That's something that I always look for. And obviously certifications are good, so I'm not here to say no to them. Obviously they are quite, I've got one, I had one, I was expired, and it was incredibly useful. But you need like real experience. And so that's the priority for me. So if I see people having side projects and all these kind of things, I would usually tend to prefer those over at certification with no experience. I don't know if this is controversial, but it's transparent at the very least.
I don't think it is. I think we are getting slightly away from just university computer science. Okay, so you can code. No degree actually guarantees that someone can do what the degree states. I mean, let's say, all right, medical and legal degrees. I'll give you that. But at most other degrees, there's no guarantee that the person will deliver what you're actually looking for. So
No, I agree. Yes, degrees are important. By the way, I'm not here to say that, but yes, that's true. So I think the key, it doesn't, that no one says that if you have one, whether it's a certification or a degree, you're better than one that doesn't. A person that doesn't have it. So that's the key things for me. So obviously, if there's nothing to choose from, so if a person is just entering the market for the first time, obviously a degree is relevant compared to a person who doesn't have it, as same it goes for a certification. But as soon as you build professional experience, they become the top priority from my point of view.
I mean, uh, perhaps a slightly, but just like you are the first investor, right? You are taking the risk.
Yeah.
And just if you're making the first hire, you can't say, oh, okay, I've seen you work at that company. And work at that company means gone through the recruitment process, assimilated with the team members, collaborated, delivered on everything that was expected from you, versus, I got a good grade on the certificate. It's
Yes.
not controversial. It's logical from your standpoint because you're not only thinking about that person themselves, but that person introduced into a team has ripple effects on everybody else and everybody else's work. So I'd say no
Yes.
controversy. Your logic.
Yes. I say a yellow flag, not a red flag, obviously. A yellow flag is too many of this. So if one CV is flooded with certifications and there's more certification than experience, then I'm always like, well, I'm something to investigate really during the interview. It's obviously not a no because they're valuable, but something to investigate. Like, why did you spend so much time during these courses? Why didn't you build something instead? Right.
Good
And
question.
maybe there are good reasons sometimes. So I find certifications really good. Uh, if you don't know where to start from, for instance, if you want to learn AWS, right? So it's like there are so many services there that you don't know where to start from, and a certification gives you a path, which is really good.
Yeah. So, question that I wanted to ask about the future of mobility. How do you see the mobility landscape in 5 years, knowing that, I got to ask you because we are slightly over time. Are you okay with this? Or,
Yeah, yeah, no problem for me.
so, like I said, the future of mobility in 5 years, because people are going to be going away from ownership into access. There are a lot of solutions for the last mile, right? So get an Uber somewhere, then take a scooter, or take the subway, then take the Bolt bike. Many and many more solutions popping up. There were the not local, for example, the government would figure out, okay, city bikes, but you would specific space, you would have stations. Is it going to be an expansion? Are we going to see 20 more scooter brands? Are there going to be helicopters, flying cars? Like, what is going to be in the mobility landscape? And we have a question that is addressing that, but I'm not sure if you understand it because
No,
it's
I don't.
for
I
the future.
I
So I assume that there was a meta study by Finn, but in that case, I'm taking it off and just coming back to my question. Uh, Future of mobility, 5 years or 10, you tell me.
I wish I knew, first of all, and I hope we have. So choice seems to be one of the options, just from what I can see. So as you mentioned, like scooters and last mile things. So like picking up here in Munich, as in many other towns, you can just pick up a car and drive, pay per minute, and that's it. So I think from the only option, which was having a car for a long time, that you have to look after this and do everything forever and also invest quite a substantial amount of money. Many options are available that suit your lifestyle. And I think that's kind of a what we'll see more and more. So a subscription is a good example. Maybe a subscription for a year, a subscription for a month, or maybe just for a few minutes because you just don't need a car most of all. In terms of cars specifically, there seems to be a push, and I'm happy we're kind of in a very good place for this towards a much better sustainable mobility with electricity being key there, like electric cars or electric everything really. But the infrastructure has to follow along, and that's probably what we'll see really good in the next years. I know the UK has pooled all the funding to buy electric cars and has moved all that money towards charging infrastructure because there was no need. People would buy electric cars anyway. So I think that's a really good shift they've done over there. But also, digitalization of this industry at the very least from a customer point of view, with like self-driving or being able to just pick someone else's car and go around, I think is exciting to see. I mean, it seems like the country's been somewhat, growing stately for ages, and now is finally enter some sort of an innovation phase, which is really nice. Personally, I hope they'll stop having so many cars in towns and create more walkable spaces for people to enjoy. I grew up in a little town that had a main road on the city center, like cutting through the city center. And then a clever mayor once decided to kill the road and just get cars to go around. And the city is completely reborn. It's like completely new city now. The center is beautiful. All the shops are very nice, and loads of people just walk around. And I think we're more. I have a feel that we're more conscious about the impact of cars on people, both in a positive, but also when they kind of split a town in two because there's a huge road in the middle. I hope we see more kind of scooters or any other type of light mobility that allows people to comfortably walk around and enjoy cities, especially here in Europe, where they tend to be cities tend to be old and smaller, and so walking is actually enjoyable.
Completely agreed. I also love that trend. I'm seeing it in Warsaw as well. Some of the main, I mean, not main communication point, because that would be detrimental to the movement itself, but some
Yes.
strategic places with cultural heritage have been blocked off and are being changed into squares where people can walk around. And this is a two birds, one stone kind of situation, because you're also focusing on urban planning, but at the same time, this the emissions of the cars. There are regulations in various European cities that don't allow cars older than X
Yeah.
years to be entering the specific area, or you have to buy a vignette, or this is like all small bricks of the systemic change that we're
Yes.
loving to
Yeah.
see. Right. So the last question, and I'm going to let you go, although I could talk non-technical, non-business. Here is the magic wand. You wave the magic wand, and after your abracadabra, every 12-year-old in the world gets a gift of the education on purge
Okay.
answers. It's your end. There's no right answer. There's just
Well, okay. So nothing to do with cars and tech, though. So I think that the education system that I've seen, or at least I've gone through, or I've seen somewhere else, is completely lacking the topic of personal finance. I find it very strange. It's something that I like to read about, so I'm biased here. But the thing is, whatever you have too much money, the right amount of money, or not enough money, you have to deal with money, and you have to manage your own money, or whether you need to get a loan to buy something, or you need to invest money, or you just need to manage your expenses. These are skills that are very important to have. And yet they're completely ignored by any education system that I've seen. But every day we make decisions about money, we make decisions about what we're going to do with our money, we make plans of the future that are mostly based on money, like think about buying a house or getting a dog or anything. They're not purely based on money, they're emotional as well, but money plays a big role in those decisions. Yet there is no education on this. So so maybe people think, oh yeah, I'll keep a stash of money in my mattress. That's the best investment for the next 10 years. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. We don't know, but they don't make this decision rationally. It is purely emotional. And that's where I think the education system should step in and educate people.
definitely, especially that last time I checked, the education's alleged goal was to make sure that once I leave the academic institution, I am ready for life.
Yeah.
This should be a foundational part
Yes.
of making sure that I'm ready for life. All right,
Sure.
Andrea. Thank you so much for the past hour and 10 minutes. Sorry for extending your time.
My pleasure.
The conversation was too interesting. It's your fault. So thank you so much for today. Thank you, dear audience, for the questions, and see you everyone on our upcoming live streams. There's one coming up about the talent wars in tech, and there's the Disruption Talks episodes running every Tuesday. You can watch it here. You can hear it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So hopefully we will be able to see you there. Thanks a lot, everyone. Bye-bye.
Have a good day.